The top story on Newsday, New South Wales has become the first state to sign up to the Gillard government's Gonski school funding reforms. The deal was signed in front of the media just a short time ago by the Premier Barry O'Farrell and the Prime Minister Julia Gillard, and will mean an extra $5 billion for New South Wales school students. Joining me now from Canberra, Sky News political reporter Laura Jays. And Laura, this is a big win for Julia Gillard.
Yeah, that's right, Selena. You remember that she did unveil this plan less than 2 weeks ago now. She took it to the COAG meetings here in Canberra last Friday, and not one premier or state signed on to the deal. They were still talking about it, still looking through the details. And then today, Barry O'Farrell had taken it to Cabinet and signed this deal with Julia Gillard just a short time ago. And it might just get the momentum going for the other states. Let me just quickly go through the deal. This means an extra $5 billion for the state of New South Wales and the students there. Now, the Commonwealth will cover 65% of that in its 2-for-1 deal. In exchange, the states have to keep the current, or there can't be any cuts to school funding, and they have to index their funding at around 3%. Now, this is a per-student funding model. It means every student in New South Wales will get a base funding of between $9,000 and $12,000. That's primary school and secondary school students. And then on top of that, there's different loadings for Indigenous students, disadvantaged, and there's 6 different categories that does take into account. Now, Julia Gillard today said that this deal is a long time coming, and actually the last 5 years of her government have been working towards this.
This is an historic announcement not only for New South Wales education but for Australian education. I believe this will be remembered as the day our nation reached out to seize the opportunity of the biggest improvement agenda for our schools in 40 years. This is an historic day for our nation because I believe, following in the footsteps of New South Wales, we will see more states and territories seriously consider standing for improved schools and improved school funding.
So that was Julia Gillard standing beside Barry O'Farrell. Just a short time ago, they signed this deal in New South Wales today. Barry O'Farrell says he took it to Cabinet. There was a number of tough decisions, but he believes this is the best way forward for New South Wales students.
I'm pleased that New South Wales is the first state to sign up to this agreement. This is the state where education started in Australia. Importantly, this is the state in which public education was pioneered by a New South Wales Premier. This reform today has the potential to ensure that some of the debates of the past, debates about funding mixes, debates about system versus system, are consigned to history, and we continue to focus on what's most important in education, which is giving our young people the best possible start and opportunities in life.
The New South Wales Premier there, Laura, not such a surprise to see him as the first to sign up, is it? Because he was quite open to this idea from the very start.
Yeah, he was, and you've seen his comments all along. He's been very receptive to the idea, to the Gonski model, and his comments have been very different from those in the Conservative states, especially Premier Colin Barnett in Western Australia, who called the Gonski work a shoddy bit of material anyway. But this is going to cost his state. He has to find $1.7 billion in all of this to keep up his end of the bargain, that 35% in the funding. It's not going to be easy, and he says it will be paid for by a number of measures. Now, he said today that there would be business tax breaks that are going to be deferred, also an efficiency dividend. So he's not taking from money from universities like the Gillard government has done so at a federal level, but some of these things like the business tax breaks and the efficiency dividend, well, the efficiency dividend could lead to higher TAFE fees, and so it's not going to be without controversy. I'm sure that will all be mulled over in the next few days, though.
And the other states would be watching that, but there is now this bit of pressure for them to sign up, isn't there?
Yeah, there is, and this might just lead to a bit of momentum. Of course, Julie Gillard has set the deadline down for the end of June, the 30th of June, for all the states to sign up. Now, WA is still putting some very strong resistance out there, but you'd have to say some of the other Conservative states in particular, Victoria is quite receptive to some of these ideas as well. But still, there are a few months and weeks to look over some of this detail. Now, Tony Abbott was in West Australia again for the second time in 2 days. Now, he says just because New South Wales has signed on to this deal today, well, it's still only one state, and he says it's not. It's still quite a way from being a national partnership. Take a look.
I always expected that some states would sign up because when you've got a government making enormous promises of money and more money, the temptation, particularly from hard-pressed state governments, is to sign up. The question is, does she really have the money that she's promised?
Of course, this all comes in the context of an election year, and if Julie Gillard can get a majority of states signed on before the election, well, it might just cause a few problems for Tony Abbott if he does win come September. But the coalition have made it clear that they won't unwind if most of the states do sign on. But he's also made it clear that his preferred model is the Howard government model, with some tinkering at the edges, more principal autonomy, for example. So an interesting debate going on when it comes to education and school funding at the moment. But Barry O'Farrell, the first Premier to sign on, be interesting to see what the states do from here, Selena.